Hello, 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 and welcome to the Madison channel. I am Madison, and today we are going to talk about how the American government, aka the Philadelphia Police Department, bombed a residential neighborhood in 1985. Let's get into it. Before we get into the story, I just want to say if you're returning, hello, hi, how are you? I'm so happy you're here. I hope you love this story. Please like the video, comment on the video, let it do well in the algorithm, and watch all of my ads because your girl is newly monetized. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Madison. I do BIPOC true crime stories, documentary reactions, and show reactions with a sociological twist. I hope you stay. I hope you subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment and like the video as well. And you also watch all of my ads. A girl wants some coin, and I love producing content for you, and I would love to take this full time. So, yeah. Mwah. So, before we get into the story, I just want to take this moment to shout out my really good friend, Chelly's boyfriend, Jesse, who suggested that I do this story. It's a really crazy story. I would say there's not a lot of victims in this story. It's very much gray area, different shades of gray. It's not a black and white story. But shouts out to you. Thank you for giving me the idea. It's so funny when you start a YouTube channel, especially one that's true crime based and has like a POV in that space. People will be shouting out different ideas for you to do. And I always just make a list. I have a whole working list in my phone. People suggest things to me all of the time on TikTok. And by the way, follow me on TikTok. I'm way more active there. I post once a day. I go live there. It's fun. We love it there. We are 91,000 strong and growing. Kiss, kiss. Do that. Link in the description. But yeah, this is like one of those stories that on the surface level, depending on what side of the oppression barrier you stand, it could be black and white. But I think the more intellectual, I guess, conversation with this particular story is that most people, all the adults are wrong in this situation, just dead ass fucking wrong in this situation. And the kids are really the only victims at all in this situation that are purely innocent. This is a crazy story. This is a story that is not often told because you would think a Philadelphia police department dropping a bomb, not one, but two, in a residential neighborhood would be bigger news, or would be something that people talked about or learned about at all remotely. Of course, that's by design. If you want to listen to my opinions about how history is made in this country, the mythos of this country, and white myth making, head to my first video where I talk at length about that. But to me, violent crimes, violence is up for interpretation, and I think the violent crime of erasure from historical text is so damaging, a lot more damaging than a lot of things. And I think the fact that this isn't widely talked about at all is problematic. So, of course, I'm so excited to tell this story. Let's get into this story. Okay, so I'm popping in really quick because I have a couple disclaimers for this video. First being that I understand this is like a controversial situation. The M.O.V.E organization bombing was a huge deal and it didn't need to go that far. Granted, a lot of people say that the M.O.V.E organization was then propagandized to be this cult. What I take into consideration when doing these videos is that nothing is ever cut and dry, nothing is ever black and white. Did they deserve to be bombed? No. Do I think there were cultish tendencies to the group? Yes. Do I think they mistreated the children of the group? Yes. And that opinion comes from the interview that Birdie Africa did after he was rescued when he was still a child. And he basically claimed that, it was very dark being a child in this organization. He corroborated the fact that they were forced to be naked and eat raw chicken, and several kids tried to run away. And basically he capped it off by saying that, the darkness of the truth of this organization as a child, experiencing it as a child, I will never fully talk about other than to my father. So I am using his testimony, even though, yes, he is the only child that survived, but I'm using his direct testimony to make my opinion, if that makes any sense. So do I believe that it was an activist organization trying to better the world through their point of view? Yes. Do I believe it had cultish tendencies? Yes. Do I believe they mistreated the children in the organization? Yes. For many reasons. Also, on top of that, if we're keeping it 1,000, keeping children in that house with the danger of what the situation was, to me further proves that, yes, they are willing to die about their cause, but do children have consent in that situation? Just imagine how scary it could have been to be a child in that situation. So that being said, that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. I'm middle of the road. I think for sure, the Philadelphia Police Department is extremely, extremely wrong and shouldn't have done what they did. But I believe that the children should have been taken care of from the M.O.V.E organization side. So, period. That's my point of view. Secondly, and second most, I posted a video on TikTok that was doing numbers regarding some of the high points of, well, really the low points, but the crazier portions of this story. The 10,000 rounds that were shot into the house, as well as the 2 bombs that were dropped onto the house. I did not at the time know that there has been for over 36 years an ongoing fight to get some of the remains of the children who died in that situation back to their families. And recently, the families won to have their children's remains given back to them, which is even more insane. So not only is this story sick in terms of the point of view of what they did to those people and how those people died, but the department, the police department, all departments involved in this lied to the families of the children and said that there were no remains, when in fact the remains were given to universities to be shown and put on display, which is fucking sick. Like, even sicker than anything I could have made up. So put that in your mind, understand that, and that's why I'm putting this at the beginning of the video. Understand that fact, okay? And then let me tell you the story, all right? So, I mean, I'm at a loss for words. When I found out that they did that, it's just so disturbing and disgusting, and I'm happy that the families that were able to win the case to get the remains back returned to them, I'm very happy for them. Thank the Lord Jesus in heaven that that's what happened, but it shouldn't have taken 36 years, and it should have never happened, period. And I'm just honestly disturbed. There are people saying that at UPenn there's a professor that brought the literal bones and showed it to the class. I mean, this country is hell, I'm convinced. But anyway, back to the original video. I just wanted to pop in here at the beginning just so you know what's good, my clear point of view about everything. And yeah, enjoy the
Just
video.
want to quickly shout out my sister in this absolutely gorgeous dream journal. It is a 12-week guided dream journal that has amazing prompts. It is absolutely super comprehensive to use and super high quality. Highly, highly recommend it. If you're interested in this, hit my Amazon storefront link in the bio so you can purchase it and try it out. Hope you love it.
On May 13th, 1985, the Philadelphia Police Department became the very first police department in the United States, first and only, to drop a bomb on its own residents. Now we're going to pause here because I don't think that is actually true. What I think, cuz immediately when I read that, I was like, Tulsa massacre. They were dropping fire bombs all over the Black Wall Street and stuff like that. So I guess in the America's official context, this is the first time that a police department dropped bombs on its own residents. I'm doing air quotes. But in the Tulsa situation, I guess the technicality is that the police department deputized white citizens, and the white citizens then dropped the fire bombs. Also, the fact that Tulsa itself was like dutifully covered up for years and years and years about the truth of what happened. So ultimately, they like to say it. I think it's one of probably many police departments that have dropped bombs in residential communities. But officially speaking, the Philadelphia Police Department is the one and only police department that dropped a bomb on its residents. Not true. Not true. But anyway, we live in a world of technicalities when it comes to America. So it's like, I guess technically, but also like, really? Not really. You feel me? The target of this bombing was a house in West Philadelphia, which was the headquarters of the M.O.V.E Foundation. M-O-V-E, capital letters all around. And the M.O.V.E Foundation and the police department had had a long-standing feud for many years. The M.O.V.E headquarters had caused a lot of problems in the local neighborhood. And there was a huge feud brewing between the M.O.V.E organization, and on May 13th, it boiled over into the police department bombing them twice. Now, in that house, in the headquarters, there were 13 people total, 7 of which were children. And we're going to get more into detail about what happened that day and all sorts of things like that. But understand this, 7 of which people in that house, 7 of the 13 were children, and only 1 adult survived and only 1 child survived. So I guess the first question would be, who is the M.O.V.E organization and why did they make the police department so mad? Now, the M.O.V.E organization is still kicking in various ways. It is still active in various ways, definitely not in the ways that it was back when this happened in the 80s, but it's still kicking. And it's been called a lot of things. It's been called a terrorist organization, a black liberation movement, it's been called an animal rights organization, and namely, it's been called a massive cult. But we can get into that. We will get into that, and my opinions about that. It was founded in 1972 by a man named John Africa, and here's one rule that you will understand. Once you join the M.O.V.E organization, you forego your last name and you take on the last name of Africa. So everyone's last name in the organization was Africa, period. So John Africa founded this organization in 1972. And it's really a mixture of black liberation and animal rights, even though the organization itself, when it started, was more interracial. It became intraracial really quickly. And so there are 2 key points and prongs of John Africa's philosophy underneath the M.O.V.E organization. The first one being that all life is created equal, meaning human life, animal life, all life is equal. All life should be respected as equal and treated as equal. So that's where the animal rights stuff comes in. And they're big on the animal rights front. But in his philosophy, all life is holy and reverent and should be dealt with as such. The second prong is based in a philosophy called anarcho-primitivism. And anarcho-primitivism is a subsect of the ideology of anarchy or anarchism. I'm not really sure. The ism of anarchy. I'm not sure. But it's a subsect of that ideology. And the subsect of anarcho-primitivism is kind of an interesting thing. When I was researching this, I was kind of like, okay, there are some things that I agree with. There are some things that I don't agree with, of course. But basically, at the core of the philosophy, is the fact that human beings are inherently flawed. So the systems that they create in order to govern are inherently flawed. And so we should do away with those systems. On top of that, they believe that all things that have happened since the Industrial Revolution are basically sacrilege. The Industrial Revolution and industrializing the world is the reason why we are going through what we're going through. They believed in reverting back to, I guess you could say, some sort of tribalism, where people lived off the land and existed in small communities who governed themselves and ate healthy, and there wasn't all of these like industrial structures and all of that kind of thing. And for me personally, I kind of vibe with that. Like lately, my sister and I have been talking a lot about homesteading, living off the land, child. Food is expensive, honey. And, we're going to be reverting backwards, I think, in a lot of ways. I think anarcho primitivism was ahead of its time, especially in the 70s, knowing what we're going to be facing in 2022 with the climate crisis and shortages of water and power and fires and all sorts of things that are going to be coming our way. It's kind of true that a lot of fundamental issues in society have to do with greed and capitalism, and it's leading us to ultimate doom. So I think at the core of it, the philosophy is correct in a sense. It's a critique on capitalism, which I always welcome and appreciate. But the way that the M.O.V.E organization carried it out was strange, and we're going to get into some of their rituals and practices and a lot of the hypocrisy, and it will also get into why I really don't believe that the leaders of M.O.V.E were totally absolved from guilt in this situation. Did they deserve to be bombed? Fuck no. But were they completely innocent, pure people? Fuck no. So let's get into it more. So, like I said before, M.O.V.E started out interracial, so there's a ton of people of different races that were involved with the M.O.V.E organization, and then it slowly became very black centric, which is dope. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with black safe spaces, blase, blase. But it was mostly characterized as a black liberation movement, not necessarily because of the messaging all the way, but because John Africa was a black man and this was his philosophy. And when a black person does something, it's automatically labeled like just for black people. That's a conversation for another day, but you know what I mean. But a lot of people were really vibing with it at first. Like they thought, living off the land, the commune style kind of living was really cool. And there were several like Black Panthers that denounced being a Black Panther to be a part of the M.O.V.E organization, which I thought was really interesting. They had similar rhetoric in terms of rights and black liberation. Sorry, there's something in my eye. Whatever. They had similar goals for the black community and things like that, but the M.O.V.E organization was pretty much fundamentally nonviolent, which is, different than the Black Panthers. And like I said before, it has to do with one of the two tenets, which is all life is created equal and reverent. So they kind of were nonviolent. It's complicated. Like I said, there's lots of hypocrisy. This is a very gray area conversation. Nonviolence was part of their messaging sometimes, I guess is the right way to put it. Yeah. So I guess the issues began in the early 70s because, mind you, this isn't a lifestyle that they're trying to move to somewhere remote, like the Amish people or something like that. This isn't a lifestyle that they're trying to move to places where they can get big swaths of land for cheap and work the land and grow, breed animals in order to kill and be self-sufficient in that way. They are trying to live this lifestyle in the middle of West Philadelphia in a city. So, as you can understand, those two things don't mix. It's like oil and water. You know what I mean? And I'm just going to pause here with my opinion because, there are definitely some human rights violations within the organization that we'll get into, particularly having to do with children. But I think it's like, how can I say this without being offensive? I guess what I'm trying to say is life doesn't owe you anything. And in a country that totes free will, free choice, freedom of opinion, freedom of all of these things, you can't just assume that because you believe a certain way of life is better than another way of life, that everyone else owes it to you to commit to your way of life. So, personally speaking, to be upset and frustrated in the middle of West Philadelphia trying to make a homestead and being so riled up by capitalism and the organization of the city and things of that nature to the point where you have loudspeakers mounted all around the outside of your house and you're screaming your messaging through a microphone at all hours of the day so your neighbors are forced to hear that all the time, to me, totes a little bit problematic. It totes a line. Obviously, I'm not one of those like protest policers, that's like, I couldn't get my eyebrows done because the street was closed off because of a protest. Like, I don't care. It's about disrupting the status quo. I get it. But I think there's also decorum in some senses. I think there's also respecting other people in some senses. I think there's also you can also bulldoze over people and what they want to do, and just because you think you have the knowledge they don't possess, which makes you more knowledgeable enough to decide what they can and can't do or shouldn't do, I think it's wrong. Is what I'm just trying to say. I think the way they went about it was fucking wrong. Like, you buy a house in a neighborhood, or you've lived in this neighborhood your entire life, and then this group of kooky people move in, and you're kind of like, okay, cool, whatever. They moved in, whatever. What they do is their business. But then immediately at all hours of the night and day, you're assaulted by their messaging and their screaming and all of that in a place that's supposed to be your home. Like, this is where the problem really started to start. It was started because they basically weren't good neighbors. Like, when you think about how far this escalated and then the reality of why all the beef started, it's kind of like, dude, this is so dramatic. But yeah, excessive force much. But the whole issue really started because they weren't really respectful neighbors. So a lot of complaints were lodged against the M.O.V.E organization by neighbors, because imagine you buy a house or have lived in a house for 30 years and these new people come in and this is what you're dealing with. Like, it's not cool. Like, it's not cool. And that's why I feel like, they should have, if their messaging was to live off the land, is to go and live off the land like the fucking Amish. Like, don't try and make everyone in West Philadelphia live by your ideology. It's not gonna fucking happen, first and foremost. And it's fucking rude. Like, decorum, please. Some decorum when it comes to neighbors. Like, honestly. So basically, because all of these complaints were happening, going to the city by the neighbors, the cops are called several times. There was this kind of feud that started to brew between the M.O.V.E organization and the police and their neighbors. Okay, so keep a pin in that. This is like bubbling under the surface at all times. And basically, it comes to a head in 1978. Now, in 1978, they didn't live in the house that was bombed twice by the Philadelphia Police Department at the time. They lived in another location, also in West Philadelphia. And again, they had been there for years. They had been causing lots of disruptions. There had been lots and lots of issues with them in the neighborhood because the neighbors were complaining. So they had this ongoing feud bubbling under the surface already with the Philadelphia Police Department. And by 1978, things came to a head for the first fucking time. Now, in 1978, there was a mayor. The mayor of Philadelphia was Mayor Rizzo, who, by all intents and purposes, was a fucking racist prick asshole kind of person. And so you can already see that two people from very opposite sides of the spectrum are going to have an interaction that is not going to go well. So after all of these complaints to the city have happened, by order of Mayor Rizzo, the police department was deployed to the house that the MOVE organization was organizing in 1978. They basically have a standoff with the police. Mind you, they have guns. Like, the MOVE organization is strapped, but none of these guns can fire. And this is where we're going to get more into the weird hypocrisies of stuff, but this is where a lot of weird, it's kind of like, like, why even have the gun? Why even take on the risk? Because even just showing a gun or holding a gun escalates a situation to a certain degree. So they had guns, they were strapped. So they're having this like fucking standoff with the Philadelphia Police Department with guns. The police department didn't know at the time that none of these guns could fire because they believed in the sanctity of life. So it's like, child, don't ask me to explain it. I can't. So they had guns that were really effectively billy clubs because they could not fire bullets because they believed in the sanctity of life. They're having this standoff with the police. Obviously, the guns are out. They don't know. The police don't know that they can't fire. So basically, the police start shooting as they do. They're typically trigger happy. So the police start firing on the MOVE organization, okay? So basically what happens in this standoff is they have their guns. Everything's escalated to a high degree. Things get tense and an officer ends up being shot and killed. Now, of course, the officer side blames the MOVE organization because they have guns. But the MOVE organization's guns could not fire, and that was later proven. So clearly it was a situation where the police were firing guns, something happened, and it shot this other. He was shot by friendly fire, essentially. It wasn't the MOVE organization. But of course, the police department, the access to power, the access to media, the access to all of these things ran with the fact that the MOVE organization killed a police officer, which is a huge no-no. We know. Don't kill a cop or else all the cops will be on your fucking ass. We know that. But on top of it, we're going to rewind a little bit to the context for why the MOVE organization has issues with the police. Now, this wasn't the first rodeo that they had an intense exchange with the police. There was another tense exchange earlier in the 70s with the police at the same address where the police were called, I think, by a neighbor or something. There was a tense exchange, and ultimately a woman's baby that was 2 months old from the MOVE organization. This woman's basically newborn baby was killed in the altercation. Now, this happened earlier in the 70s. So early 70s, baby dies on the MOVE side, okay? Late 70s, they have this standoff with the police where one police officer is shot and killed, and then another MOVE organizer was beaten up, like beaten senseless, even though he was surrendering in the situation. So basically, how both sides are seeing it is they both have skin in the game now. Blood has been drawn from both sides, even though it's likely the cop was killed by other cops. They're playing with this narrative. So now it's a very us versus them mentality post 1978 standoff, right? And it's not good because things only go up from here, of course. So after this standoff in 1978, where one of the MOVE organizers was beaten senseless by the cops while surrendering, of course, and then a cop was shot, likely by friendly fire, of course, the police start spinning the narrative that the MOVE organization killed a cop. This is bad news, obviously, because, you're not supposed to kill cops. And so basically, they get a conviction, blah, 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 and they convict 9 MOVE organization members to anywhere between 30 to 100 years in prison for killing this cop, even though it was proven that none of their guns could fire bullets. And it was likely the cops who fired the bullets. So now we're at a really close to boiling point because not only has a 2-month-old baby died due to an altercation with the cops, A man was beaten senseless by the cops while surrendering due to a situation between them and the cops. A man was shot, and it's evidence that the MOVE organization couldn't have shot that man because their guns didn't fire, but that wasn't taken into account because the police had already had the perfect narrative to run with. So they're being blamed for the murdering of a cop that was likely from their side. And then on top of that, they are convicting 9 people wrongfully from 30 years to 100 years in prison because of that. So they all 9 of people were convicted, get sent to jail, and things are just boiling over. MOVE organizers and the police, it's like straight up fuck the police, fuck MOVE. It's very, we are on opposing sides of this fight. You are my arch nemesis. It's giving arch nemesis tease, to be honest. So because of that situation, after they were the 9 people who were called the MOVE 9, mind you. So after the MOVE 9 was convicted of anywhere between 30 to 100 years in prison, the MOVE organization thought, this is our chance to get more disruptive in our community. We're going to be louder. We're going to talk more. We're going to witness more in our community, which of course caused more of an onslaught of complaints from their neighbors. Of course, naturally. So the conversation about the MOVE organization being a cult is kind of an interesting one, because it really depends on where you're standing in the argument, where you're standing in the room. Did the Philadelphia Police Department think they were a cult? Yes. Did the MOVE organization think they were a cult? No. They thought they were an activist group. Did their neighbors think they were a cult? Yes. Do I think they were a cult? Things are complex. I am a firm believer of things having the ability to be more than one thing at once. Do I think MOVE was an activist group that fought for animal rights and black human rights? Yes. Do I think it was also a cult? Yes. So one of the aspects of why I think MOVE was a cult in a lot of their ways, and we're going to get into more of the hypocrisies of the organization. So they believed in anarcho-primitivism, right? So if you believe that ideology, no electronics would be used, right? But of course, the adults in the group could use cars, could use phones, could use, electronics. But in the house, they only had a wood stove and certain things. So it's just like, I don't think their ideology was truly fleshed out, because if they were really about it, they would be living truly like the Amish, but they were not. So it was like pseudo anarcho-primitivism type thing. Another hypocrisy that I thought was extremely problematic and extremely weird was that none of the children were allowed to wear clothing, and all the adults could wear clothing. And their argument for a lot of these hypocrisies was, well, we've already been tainted by this capitalistic society, so we're doing what makes us comfortable, but we're teaching the new generation in their purity to live truly as anarcho-primitists or whatever. Weird, especially when it comes to naked children and forcing children to be naked, especially children that you're not related to. It's giving real creepy. And the real reason why they did that was so the kids didn't feel like they could just run away because they were naked. So it's giving cults. It's giving cults, and I just found that super fucking dark and super strange. When we talk about the one survivor child from the situation, basically, he doesn't give a lot in terms of his experience with the MOVE organization, but what he did say was, there are so many dark things that I will only ever speak about to my father, because it was just so dark. Now, another super strange thing that was super hypocritical to me is the kids could eat meat, but they had to eat it raw. So these kids were being fed raw chicken, raw beef, raw all of that. No. Just no. Like, that's fucking disgusting. Raw chicken. And again, the excuse, but the adults could eat cooked meats. And the excuse was, we aren't built for the raw meats because as children we were fed cooked meat. So we're raising our children in the way that they would be raised in a tribal setting with raw, fresh meat or whatever. And it wasn't fresh, child, but you know what I mean. Like, so these are things that make me be like, okay, like the adults, the police officers were dead ass wrong for bombing y'all. But if this is how you're treating the children, you guys are dead ass fucking wrong. Like, someone definitely needed to step in. You are wrong on multiple occasions. This is not okay. It's giving cult and it's giving child abuse, which is not okay. But yeah, so there there are real tenets of the MOVE organization that do lend themselves to be able to say, you're a cult, dude. But also you can see that they were activists as well. So moving forward, so imagine this, right? Okay, neighborhood, you lived in it for 30 years or you just moved in. The house next door has a interesting organization that lives there. They are screaming their ideology all day and night. You see naked children running around. Maybe some naked children have come to your door asking for food. The kids are being fed raw meat. They have a pseudo animal shelter in the alley next to their house that is not up to code or regulation. And you're witnessing this as a neighbor. So naturally you're complaining. Like, I understand the neighbors complaining. I'd be complaining if for anything for the safety of those damn children, because they need to be taken away. Honestly, it's not giving safe. It's not giving safe place for children to be raised. It's giving really unhinged and strange from the perspective of the neighbors. Of course, it made all the sense to the people within it, but it wasn't making sense. So again, they continue to up the ante after the 1978 standoff. They moved to the house that, they ended up getting bombed. So moved to a new neighborhood, and the neighbors are calling and complaining, of course. And they get a new mayor, the first black mayor ever of Philadelphia, mind you. So basically, the first black mayor ran on a reform ticket, basically trying to say, we're going to undo what Mayor Rizzo did with racism and politics and class issues and things like that. But of course, you are being confronted with the biggest version of that, the biggest obstacle of that, which is dealing with the MOVE organization. They moved, yes, to a different place, but this is really the epitome of what you don't want to be dealing with as a black mayor, the first black mayor of Philadelphia, and you're trying to eradicate racism and stuff, because it could be easily spun that you're against the movement by attacking a black liberation group and blase squaze. But also, if you aren't hard on this organization from the other perspective, there's child abuse issues. Like I'm saying, it's nuanced. This conversation isn't nuanced. Okay, so that's all the context I'll provide for you. The stage is set. You understand that it started by John Africa in 1972. They had several run-ins with the police that were very contentious. Things are boiling in terms of the MOVE organization versus the police. Very contentious relationship. You have a black mayor. You have the MOVE 9, who were convicted to 30 to 100 years. And you have the backdrop of Philadelphia in the 80s with this new black mayor. So take all of that into account, and let's get into why their headquarters were bombed. Now, MOVE was built like a fortress. They had built it pretty darn good to be able to withstand a lot of stuff. They had a bunker. Again, they had guns that couldn't fire, but they had a bunker. They had fortified the windows and the walls to effectively make it a pretty decently constructed fortress. And in May of 1985, the mayor had decided to take initiative and basically was responding to the complaints of the city, particularly to protect the children in this organization, which I think is good. But the plan was to extract every single member of the MOVE organization out of that house by any means necessary. So, here comes the nightmare. So the plan was to take down this little fortress on the roof to make sure that the people going into the house, bringing people out, didn't have some sort of surprise of getting hurt, getting shot, or something like that. So the goal was to take this bunker off from the roof. So the point was, at least to start, to get some sort of distraction, to be able to get the thing off the roof and get the SWAT team into the house and pull them out by any means necessary. So they started with a combination of using water cannons and tear gas. And child, they had them water cannons running for hours. They were tear gassing that house for hours. And they were surprised that one, the bunker on the roof did not move an inch. And two, that nobody came out. They were assaulting this house with tear gas and water cannons for hours. No one came out. No one came out. The water cannons were directed at the house for hours. And yes, the house was made out of brick, but there are parts of the house that were not brick. And the police department fully expected all of those parts of the house to wither away, come off because of the strength of the water, the pressure of the water. Nothing came off. These people had fortified this house like a freaking tank. So they were being shocked by how no one's coming out. And the house, the structure, everything is still intact after hours of the water cannons being turned and tear gas being thrown. So this plan went down the toilet pretty fast. And remember, there are 7 children in this house. And the reason why they're trying to extract people from this house is because they are trying to save these children. At least that's the official story. So the tear gas is already kind of excessive to me, especially if you're trying to save children. You need to be more stealth. You need to do, SWAT team, Marines type vibe, like full, like busting down the door, but knowing everything type gig. Like, you can't be just tossing tons of tear gas hoping that someone will come out. Like, that's not a strategy. There's 7 children in this house. Like, you need to think of that utmost, right? What the police didn't know is that the M.O.V.E organization completely brought everyone, saw the police coming, saw them setting up, got everyone in the organization into their basement. So the water cannon wasn't affecting them, nor was the tear gas really affecting them. So they're huddled in the basement all together at this point in time. Okay, I think it's important to note that a few days before the planned raid on the M.O.V.E house, the police went door to door and basically told everyone in the block that the M.O.V.E house was and 2 streets east and 2 streets west of the entire block where the M.O.V.E house was, that they needed to pack their shit, they needed to go, they were going to get everyone out of this M.O.V.E house, which is what all of these neighbors wanted. So they were happy to go, get your belongings, get everything, pack up, and you need to leave, hit the bricks, because whatever happens on this day, we are getting these people out by any means necessary. People were happy to comply. They towed every car on the street. So essentially, all the houses were vacant at this time except for the M.O.V.E house. There are no cars on the street. They had prepped this, hence why I think it probably clued the M.O.V.E organization people into the fact that something was coming. But yeah, so for all those asking questions, there's nobody around. So, of course, official testimony from the police say shots were fired from the M.O.V.E house. Okay? It is found that the first shot that was fired came from an automatic weapon. The M.O.V.E house organization did not have automatic weapons, and also their weapons couldn't fucking fire, as we established before. So basically the cops lied and said that the M.O.V.E people shot at them, so they shot back, when really they shot first and they shot back. So they let off over 10,000 rounds into that house. Mind you, the reason why they're doing this is to supposedly rescue these 7 fucking kids and take them into the government and away from being abused and naked and eating raw chicken and shit from this organization. But their next course of action is to shoot 10,000 rounds into the house, to the point where they run out of bullets and a police truck drives over and gives them more bullets so they can reload and continue shooting thousands of rounds into this house where the 7 children that they're supposed to be rescuing are stuck inside. Mind you, this is 1985, child. This isn't 1930 or 1920. This is 1985. And you know what people are doing? The news is there. The news is watching. And people are watching this live. People are watching this live in Philadelphia on the fucking news. Okay? They are watching the police shoot 10,000 rounds into a house. They are watching the cop truck come to deliver more bullets so they can shoot another few thousand rounds into this house. They are watching every fucking thing. This is live. This is live. Ciao. Like, this is where things start to get fucking crazy.
In Philadelphia tonight.
Lancy, this morning, what you are looking at now is a live picture of the water cannons pouring high-pressured streams of water onto the top of the M.O.V.E house. That is what the M.O.V.E members have called a bunker, a fortified area.
Mind you, the people watching this live, everyone knows there's 13 people in the damn house, and everyone knows on top of that, 7 of the people in the damn house are children. Honey. So, of course, 10,000 rounds plus whatever thousand from the cop truck that came and dropped off more bullets for them to shoot into the house. Nothing happens. None of them come up from the basement. None of them come up to surrender. So a cop is like, hey, his name is, let me see his name. William Klein, with your stupid ass, was like, you know what would be a good idea? Let's drop a bomb on the house. Huh? We've already gone through it. But the reason why the cops are trying to get people out of this house is because of the lengthy amount of complaints from the neighbors that children are in this house being abused. That's the reason why they're here. And everyone knows it. The cops know that. The news crew knows that. The people watching live know that. There are 13 people in this house. They have not emerged yet. They have been in this standoff for hours. People have watched you shoot over 10,000 rounds and bullets into this house, which doesn't make sense if you're trying to rescue children who are supposedly alive in this house. And then the next course of action is not negotiating, is not trying to, get into the house. The next course of action is to drop a bomb onto the house. So why didn't you just start there? Why even lie and say that it was about the children if you're immediately going to be like, we're going to drop a bomb on this house? How does that save the children inside? Do you know? Okay. Honey. So the plan was to drop a bomb from a helicopter onto the roof to get rid of the tactical advantage of the bunker, where it's like you can't contain a fucking bomb, but okay. They're going to get a helicopter, drop the bomb on the bunker on top because it's a tactical advantage, and then they'll be able to get in and rescue everyone inside. Okay. To them, that sounded like the best idea since sliced bread. So what did they do? They got a Tovax bomb. A Tovax bomb is a particular bomb that's water-based. It's gelatinous, and it's used in demolition when it comes to mining. So they're like, cool, we're going to drop this Tovax bomb on the roof. Then the bunker will be gone. They don't have a tactical advantage on us anymore. And we're going to go in, get the children, I don't know, and, arrest whoever we need to arrest, okay? It's later found out that the bomb coordinator, because I guess every police department needs a bomb coordinator. The bomb coordinator drops a Tovax bomb. The bunker doesn't move an inch. Then he makes his own bomb using C4 and other explosives like that. Now, mind you, the police department isn't supposed to have its hands on any C4, babe, especially not enough to make a bomb. All right? And what is found out in the investigation after this is the FBI was illegally selling the police department C4 and dynamite. Cause duh. Okay? So, they didn't drop one bomb. They dropped two bombs. The Tovax bomb first, nothing happened. Then the C4 bomb, nothing happened. But what they didn't think about was that the bunker may have not contained a person at all. But it was full of gasoline. Okay? So they dropped the Tovax bomb, then the C4 bomb, boom. House starts to go up in flames. The house starts to go up in fucking flames. Mind you, this is all happening live on the news. The people of Philadelphia just watched the Philadelphia Police Department drop two bombs on a house because they were supposed to rescue the kids inside of the house that are still inside the house, and now the house is on fire. Okay.
Or warning or anything, they dropped that bomb on the roof of our home. Now, at that point, we didn't know exactly what they had done. We heard the loud.
In case you just joined us at 7:42 at night on this most unusual Monday in Philadelphia, we do not know if the episode at M.O.V.E is over. We do know, once again, that a fire has enveloped the M.O.V.E compound and at least 6 other row home dwellings on the east side of the 6200.
Okay, smallish fire starts at 5:27 p.m. So in the evening, bomb drops, fire starts. At 5:45, even though the fire isn't completely out at all in the house, the fire department turns off the water cannons. Okay? They decide that even though there's a fire on top of a house that's housing children that we're supposed to be saving, we're going to turn off the water cannons to let this house burn, basically. Let them tell it they weren't letting it burn, but obviously they were letting it burn. Because what, does this make sense to you? This is not, child, like, come on. Like, please be fucking for real. Like, can't we just, hold on. Because I'm getting heated. When I heard this story, when I researched this story, it's just like, I'm pissed. Because, actually be fucking for real. Does any of the way they dealt with this situation to get the children out of this house make sense to any of you? I didn't think so, because it doesn't make any logical sense. Now, on top of dropping 2 bombs on this house to get the children out, you're letting the fire burn to basically smoke them out like bees? Okay. That's going to turn out great, isn't it? It's not.
And this is unconfirmed. Gunshots have been heard in the area. Once again, the mayor said that 3 of the 4 adults who left the M.O.V.E compound tonight after the fire broke out were loose in the area with guns. That's the way he described it. So obviously, Philadelphia Stakeout Squad members sometime and someplace in that area have their work really cut out for them, and it's compounded by the fact that there's a fire being fought in the same neighborhood. This is not an easy situation. And once again, this fire that you're looking at now is on 62nd Street near the corner of Pine. It is a fire that is out of control. We understand a 4-alarm fire. Summarizing Mayor Good's news conference, he says he takes full responsibility for all the actions of his police commissioner and his fire commissioner. Looked extremely confident. Said he was very, very concerned about the potential loss of life. Also said that no group must ever be allowed, no one single group, to hold an entire city hostage, obviously referring to the M.O.V.E situation, and reiterating once again that he was convinced that M.O.V.E was indeed determined to get involved in a violent confrontation, the kind of confrontation that took place today. He did not seem nervous, although at the end of the news conference he did wipe his brow.
5:45, they turn the water cannons off. 6 p.m., the mayor calls a chief of police and is like, yo, you need to put this fire out. Everyone in Philadelphia is watching this happen live on the news, including the mayor. He's like, you guys need to put the fire out. Okay? 33 minutes later, they decide as a collective to put the fire out. Now, here's where it gets sketchy. Because according to the chief of police got the call from the mayor, and he relayed that message to the fire chief, who is in charge of the water cannons, right? He claims that the chief of police refused to turn the water cannons on. What really happened was the chief of police was trying to smoke these people out of this house using the fire to get them to come out and surrender. So he didn't tell the chief of the fire department to turn the water cannons back on as instructed by the mayor. And the chief of the fire department under oath swear that this is what happened, that he was never told. And, you know, I tend to believe firefighters over cops. Period. So by 6:30, when they finally decide it's time, even though the mayor called them at 6 to put the fire out, the whole house is on fire. The house is starting to get engulfed in fucking flames. Now, the chief of police, under oath, claims that he wasn't using fire as a weapon to get these people out. But it's obvious that he was, because he got the call to put the fire out at 6, and then 30 minutes later decided to put the fire out when the whole house is engulfed in flames now. Mind you, again, 13 people are inside, 7 of which are children, that this whole raid is supposed to be centered about. And everyone in Philadelphia is watching this live on TV. Okay? Okay. So they finally turn the water cannons back on around 6:30. Of course, the fire's out of control, and the heat from the fire is creating such a thick steam that the people who are trained to go into, houses engulfed in fires to rescue people, the firefighters, couldn't go in anymore because the steam from the fire and the water cannon was making such a thick steam that there was an issue of visibility. So they couldn't even go in to rescue these people. I don't know if that's true. That's what they claim, child. I don't know if that's true.
I will defer the police commissioner at some post-news conference deal with all those kinds of details. That decision has not been made. There could very well be that situation that will take place, Russell. Yes.
I understand you're saying that the decision not to close down the house was because of fear for the firefighters, but you knew there were children in that house as well. Who made the decision not to go in after the children?
I really cannot respond to that question at this time in terms of whether or not there was a conscious decision made as to when the fire hose would be placed there or not. I don't know.
Did you know there were still children in the house?
I was aware all along there were children in the house, yes.
Mr. Mayor, does it not come down to deciding whether adult firemen or children are going to live?
Carlin, I really don't want to respond to that question.
Y'all are going to jail!
So, of course, house engulfed in flames. All the right people to stop a house from being engulfed in flames and organize a rescue situation were there, making the house go up in flames with people inside and not being able to rescue those people. But of course, the fire jumped from house to house to house to house to house. It even jumped a street. So now, not only is this house on fire, but the entire block is on fire. Okay? And not only is the entire block on fire, but a street over is also on fire. Huh? And again, where are the children? Where are the children? So basically, the fire wasn't declared contained until 11 p.m. So the fire was basically burning from 5:27 to 11 p.m. Now, what also was happening while this fire was going on was people from the M.O.V.E organization were trying to get out of the house, okay? There was a side door into the alley, and here's where it's like a crossover story with this. So the 2 cops that beat up the guy from the MOVE organization standoff in 1978 and were there that day when their cop friend was killed, shot and killed in the interaction, were also there the day that the MOVE house burned down. Okay. Now, a lot of people were speculating that these people were biased, of course, because of the altercation that they were a part of before, that they shouldn't have been there, blah, 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 that they acted negatively in this situation because of, spilt blood in the past experience in 1978. They claim that's not true, but let me describe to you how these people tried to escape and they get confronted by these cops. Tell me if this is bias. Okay. As the people are trying to escape from this burning house that's been on fire for hours, they're coming up from the basement and trying to go out the side door. The cops are the two cops, okay, that beat up the people in 1978. They were at the side door, manning the side door. They, according to Birdie Africa, who is a lone kid survivor of the situation, the cops were shooting their guns at them as they're trying to escape the burning house. These two cops, the same two cops that beat up the guy before, they were shooting at them. So now the people are caught between a rock and a hard place because the house is burning around them. They're trying to escape, but then the cops are shooting at them to make them stay inside the house, according to Birdie Africa. The cops testified that no gunshots were fired, and in fact, the MOVE members were shooting guns and pointing guns at them, which was not corroborated. The gunshots, though, were corroborated by several other people that day. So basically, the cops that were there in 1978, when their cop friend was shot, likely by the cops themselves, because, again, the MOVE members' guns couldn't fire, okay? They were there the same day the house burns down. These people are trying to make an escape from the back door. The cops see them trying to make an escape. They shoot their guns at them, force them back inside to a burning house. Come on. Come on. Then the cops also testified that Birdie Africa, who was a 13-year-old fucking child, actually was a man with a rifle pointed dead at them as they were trying to leave from a burning house. When in reality, Birdie had a wrench that he was using to try and break the windows while they're being shot at in a burning house. Bye. So basically, Ramona Africa and Birdie Africa were the only two survivors. The only good cop in this situation was a cop named, let me make sure his name is correct, James Bergheyer, I believe, who basically helped Birdie Africa escape. He saw Birdie Africa struggling to get out of the window and ran in to pull Birdie Africa out. Okay? Did you think his cop friends were excited about that? No. You want to know what happened to the officer that helped a child get out of a burning house? You want to know what happened to him? His own police brothers turned on him and forced him out of the police force after this situation. They called him racial slurs and forced him out, and he was diagnosed with PTSD and left the force 2 years after this happened in 1987. So, of course, ACBA, because... Huh? Like, this whole situation is fucking asinine, but this ending part was like a cherry on top of a shit cake. Like, the one cop that does his fucking job, which is to protect and serve, sees a 13-year-old boy struggling to get out of a burning house that they watched burn and let burn, knowing there were children in there, even though they said that they were there to rescue said children, right? So sees a child trying to get out. His colleagues are telling him, no, leave it alone, don't go. He fucks that, goes, helps the kid out, And then he's bullied relentlessly by his police force till he drops out with PTSD because he helped a child get out of a house that was burning and on fire, that they caused to be on fire because they bombed it twice, even though they were supposed to protect the children. Like, honey, because, child, we're going to just move on. We're going to move on, okay? So here are the stats. 11 people died, including 6 children. There were a few settlements of the parents of the dead children. The parents of the dead children settled for $25 million total. Birdie, Africa got $1.7 million. Ramona, Africa got $500,000. And the families of John Africa could not reach a settlement. The family of John Africa could not reach a settlement, so they were awarded $1 million by a jury. The police chief and the fire chief were made to pay $1 a week to Ramona, Africa for 11 years, which only totaled to be $572. It was more symbolic, of course. Yeah. Okay. Ramona, Africa was sent to prison after this for 7 years, which, you know, considering that she was an adult in this situation, yes, I think she deserved getting something after being forced to be in a burning building and all of that, like what I just described the situation to be, because she didn't deserve a bomb dropped on her child. But for how they were treating the children, like these kids were malnourished, eating raw meats, naked, like, I think jail time was appropriate, to be honest. She did the full time because she refused to denounce the M.O.V.E organization that whole time. The M.O.V.E 9, who were charged for killing that police officer in 1978, according to them, some people got off on parole, 2 died in prison, 2 are still in prison, and yeah. Birdie, Africa died in a hot tub cruise ship drowning due to intoxication. Now that's part. Birdie, Africa was a child. He died in a hot tub cruise ship drowning because he was drunk. After surviving something like this, child, the world is strange. The world is strange. Hey. So, that's how it ends. That's how this story ends, you guys. I guess what I want to say in terms of wrapping this story up, because this is not how I expected the story to go, if I'm keeping it 1,000. I didn't expect this story to be so complicated in terms of the fact that basically the only innocent people in this situation were the 7 children, 6 of which perished. The police were dead ass wrong. The M.O.V.E organizers, they were dead ass wrong. When it came to doing right by the children, they were dead ass wrong. So it was complicated. I thought it was like a clear, like, they were, you know, power to the people, black power, the cops were against us. No, child. These people, I don't know. To me, they were kind of kooky. I think kooky is a euphemism. They were batshit crazy. Yeah. I'm never feeding children raw meat is on the tip of the iceberg of problematic, and no child should have to be forced to be nude in front of a bunch of adults. Weird. And according to Birdie, when he was under oath, talking about the experience or whatever, Birdie basically said, the horrors that I faced as a child in that organization are things I will never speak on. I've only ever told my father, and I will only ever tell my father, which is sick and scary. So I can only imagine what really went down. But of course, the other 6 children perished in the fire. The cops, I mean, to say this is a blunder is an understatement. I'm disgusted. This is crazy. What? It's just like every choice that they made was horrible. Period, from start to finish. Same with the fire department. I'm kind of sad because I fuck with the fire department, but you guys, I mean, come on, what the fuck? Turn the water on when the fire starts. You're a firefighter. Like, I'm not understanding it. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, yeah. This is a true crime story, y'all. It's a true crime story for many fucking reasons. Not just that people died, but it's evident of the macro version of true crime, the systematic oppression of people of color, the quick to label these organizations as terrorist organizations, so then it's okay to use excessive force on these organizations. The fact that 6 children died in a fire of the police department's own making because they dropped a bomb on a house full of people who are still alive, even though they're trying to rescue the children, so they claim. This is a fucking true crime story, child. This is a mass murder. I mean, it's true crime. It's true crime, people. It's also true crime because this is something that nobody fucking teaches you. You don't hear about this situation. No one talks about it, especially if it's touted as the one and only time that the American police departments or a local police department had sanctioned for a bomb to drop in a residential community, which again, Tulsa happened, so I don't believe that. But you know what I mean, officially speaking. So why wouldn't it be in a history book? You know, it happened in 1985 live on the news. It's giving weird. So the erasure to me is also indicative of the type of story that I like to talk about. So, crazy story. Sorry I got heated, but I get heated when it comes to like children. Like, this is crazy. Like, what's even going on? What's even the logic behind any of this? But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoy my content. Thank you for watching. Please, if you're new here, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. This is only but a sample of the many plethora of videos I have on my channel and the plethora of videos to come. I hope you watch the ads, please. And comment your opinion about the story down below. Were you there? Did you see it? Did you know about it? Are you from Philadelphia? Do they teach you that in school? Let me know. I want to know what your thoughts on this whole thing is. If you're a returning subscriber, hello, love you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for watching. I just love you guys so much. This has just been so fun. And yeah, what else can I say? Keep watching all my ads. Follow me on Instagram. All my social links are down in the description below. Follow me on TikTok. Very interactive there. Also, I'm starting my Amazon storefront, so if you have any suggestions, I'm gonna put my YouTube setup on there as well. I have my I also have my sister's dream journal, which an ad will be a part of this, in the beginning part of this video. It's amazing. It's a 12-week dream journal, so you can purchase it down in my Amazon storefront as well. But yeah, I guess without further ado, Black Lives Matter and Free Palestine until it's backwards. Love you guys.